There we go. I moved inside because I think that might have been half the reason the connection wasn't so good. But we'll see. I'm just going to wait and see if anyone else is joining. Sorry about the delay. Looks like I am live, but I have no idea if it's working. Hi. So for those of you, looks like Marie is online. For those of you that are joining this call, sorry, the connection on the previous one dropped out, so that's why I started a new one. Hopefully this one is all groovy. So, let's see. Okay, hi, Marie, you can hear me. Okay, great. Okay, so I was just talking about how your fears come up for you. Please watch the first video if you haven't already, if you weren't on the live call with me and you're watching the recording. But we were talking about how the fears and everything show up for you in your life, and you know, what kind of, I guess, results that leads into in your life. So, for example, if you are working on a project and you decide that you want to sit down and start like really putting into action everything on your specific goal that you have, does it show up for you like you start feeling the fear? And it might be, you know, this is going to take some self-awareness, because if you're not sure of this right now, these are the kind of things that I recommend you look for in your life moving forward. But you might sit down to do your work and then suddenly it's like a million other things that you have to do pop into your head, and you start, you know, you just quickly grab a drink, then you quickly do the dishes, then you quickly do some laundry, and then your friend calls, and then your family asks you to do something and you go do it for them, and it's almost like you're procrastinating and you're finding a million other things to do instead of your project, and it feels all pretty legit. I mean, those are all legit things you need to do. When your family asks for help, you got to do it. But are those things coming up maybe because you also have this underlying fear that you might fail anyway, you know? So that fear of failure that some of you mentioned. Or is it maybe that you have a fear of success, which is an unusual one that actually quite a lot of people have, where you feel like you couldn't handle the success, or you might, you know, you won't be loved if you're successful because you know someone who you know, lots of people speak bad about people who are successful for whatever reason, right? So there's all of these particular reasons or like ways that it could show up. So in that scenario that I was giving is that the fear showed up as procrastination in your life. Okay, or when I gave the example in the previous video of you being in a crowd of people and you start getting either really shy or really crazy or whatever it might be, then that fear might be showing up for you in making you like alienating yourself from a group so that you can never build strong connections with someone. Hi everyone who's joining. Marie says, yes, I'm at this point right now. Just about to release my podcast on iTunes. So cool, Marie. And now I'm afraid of the missing quality will not be good enough because hear me breathing and all that stuff. Yeah, and Marie, you know, I mean, that's the beautiful thing is, you know, you have that level, you can self-coach yourself past that. It's okay, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to start getting that content out there. And I don't know if you've seen my podcast, Marie, we haven't, we kind of paused on our podcast. My husband and I had one together, and we did, I think, about 12 or 13 episodes, and it was awesome. Like, I thought it was pretty cool content, and we got such awesome feedback on it as well, but we were literally just recording it on, like, iPhone headphones, you know, just, like, one take. And we got awesome feedback on it, so I wouldn't worry about it, Marie. It's going to be amazing. You know it will be. It's the quality of what's within the podcast that's going to matter most, and you can always upgrade in the future. So Vicky, my fear is scared of failure and judgment. Yeah, so big ones, right? Failure and judgment. And so we know these, like, I guess, these bigger terms, and it's good to know these things. However, I think it's also good to become aware of how they're showing up in your life, as I have been talking about. Okay, so as I was just saying, it might be through procrastination or alienating yourself, or you know, just stopping yourself from doing whatever it is that you want to do. That's basically how it's going to come up, right? That's a good way to summarize it. I noticed that one of the girls commented that one of the big ways it's coming up for her, or when it comes up, which is the other thing, it's like, when does it come up, right? is when she's starting new projects or new things. And this was a really interesting one that I really just wanted to touch base on for a moment, because can I just mention that that is actually the most common time that that your limiting fears will come up. In fact, they're probably, for the most part, the only time when you're about to start something new or work on something that will take you somewhere new. Okay? The reason for this is like the simplest way that I can describe it for you, okay? So the reason that we're living the current life that we're living and we have all the things we have in our life is because they're within our comfort zone, okay? So we have this like little bubble and we live inside this bubble, and everything within this bubble is within our comfort, which is why we experience it, okay? So on a day-to-day life, without having to consciously think about it, the actions that we're taking, the things that we're thinking, the people that we're connecting with are all within the comfort zone of that bubble, right? Therefore, they lead to the results that we have and the experience that we have in our life, right? Does this make sense? So within our comfort zone, if the things that we desire and that we want were within our comfort zone or within our reach, we would already have those things, okay? The only reason we don't have those things is because they are outside of our comfort zone. Okay? And our ego loves our comfort zone. And for a very good reason. I mean, it knows that when we're within our comfort zone, we are alive. And that is the primary goal of the ego, is to keep us alive. Okay? So there goes our ego wanting to keep us alive, knowing that the people that we interact with currently, we're alive. When we speak to those people, we are alive. When we do this kind of work, we still live. So it has developed this kind of safety mechanism, knowing that everything within our current lifestyle is okay to keep you alive. All right? So, so this is that one aspect of the ego, right? And so what happens when we start doing something that's outside of our comfort zone? So we decide, you know what, I'm going to try something new, or I'm going to go talk to that person that I've never spoken to before, or I'm even going to allow my mind to enter a new realm of possibility and let myself brainstorm and really dig deep and discover those goals that are deep within me, right? Like some of you may have started to feel that fear on day one when we spoke about, you know, what are your goals? And I'm here going like, anything you want, you can do. And you're just like, yeah, but maybe I'll just tone it down a little bit, you know? No, none of that. I'll get to the comments in a moment, guys. I'll just explain this phenomenon. And so we have our comfort zone, and then we decide we want to do something else. And the beautiful thing is that our comfort zone is actually not built of something rigid, right? Our comfort zone can actually grow. It can expand, it can stretch, and that is the beauty of it, right? So we can grow our comfort zone into having all of those things that we want to have. However, what happens is the first step to growing our comfort zone is actually stepping outside of our comfort zone. And so that's going to come from, for example, going up to that new person and talking to them, or pursuing a business opportunity, or whatever that might be for you. And that the border of our comfort zone, like, I don't know, like let's say this is the border of our comfort zone. As we step over that, actually what makes up our border are all of our current beliefs that are keeping us where we are. So as we cross that border of our comfort zone, we actually come face to face with the things that are currently keeping us where we are. Okay? So that's why, you know, I talk about the emotional roller coaster, and a lot of people that I coach and mentor, this is one of the biggest things that we talk about, because it is completely normal for your life to feel like it's turning into a shit show after you decide to try something new, or for all of a sudden something dramatic to happen, or for you to experience anxiety for the first time, or all of these things, because those are actually part of the beliefs and patterns in your life that have kept you where you are for so long. Okay? Now, once you start to understand that this is actually just the scenario, what's happening, you can actually start to almost self-coach yourself. You can create awareness around this. And what you have to do is, rather than thinking, oh my gosh, this is my reality, my life is falling apart, there's no way I can pursue this new thing that I'm doing, is we just literally have to look at it and say, okay, you know, this first you might be like, that shock feeling, initial shock feeling, but then you're like, wait, no. I must be stepping out of my comfort zone. I'm being confronted with some specific beliefs right now. And those beliefs are telling me, or those beliefs are showing me anxiety, or they're showing me this, or whatever it might be. I'm not good enough. What if people hate what I do? And all of these things. Then we just have to recognize that and basically say, okay, thank you for showing me what has been keeping me in this particular area where I am. I am going to choose to keep moving forward anyway. And then take another step in the right direction towards your goals. Because that is then how you overcome that space in your life and grow your comfort zone in that area. And then afterwards your body will be like, oh, okay, jokes. Like, you can be excited again. It's all good. Just testing you. Or you can say, you know what, I don't have the courage right now to move past this. I'm going to choose to stay the same. And it is just a choice. Regardless, after you make that decision, that emotional roller coaster will even out again. Okay? So you're going to hit this really scary point. You're going to decide to either keep moving or to retreat. When you retreat, you stay the same. When you keep moving, you move forward and towards what you're working towards. Regardless, after you've made that decision of which way you're going to go, it'll smooth out again. Okay? So it takes courage. And I also wanted to mention is that a really interesting thing is that a lot of emotions that we feel within our body are actually the exact same physical feeling. How we label them is very different. Okay, and I've talked about this before in terms of like on my other live oh my gosh, I can't talk, my public Facebook page, which some of you follow. I've talked about it on lives there before, but it's almost like when we feel, for example, excitement and anxiety, or excitement and nervousness have the same physical feeling in our body. However, depending on the scenario, we'll label them differently. Like, we might feel that feeling before we go onto a roller coaster and say it's excitement, but before we go on stage for a public speaking engagement and say it's nervousness, but actually physically it's the same feeling. The reason I want to bring it up in this particular scenario is because it's the same physical feeling, our ego almost reads it as the same thing. So we might be mentally really excited about an idea or an opportunity or something that we want to pursue, and our body is going to feel or our mind is going to see that as excitement, and it's going to be like lit up about the opportunity. However, our body might recognize that, or our ego might recognize that as fear. And that's why it triggers the fear responses. It starts literally telling you every single thing that could go wrong, and it highlights and makes bigger all of the things that that possibly could go wrong. Like, oh my gosh, what if everyone hates me if I do this? Or what if this? Or what if I fail? Or what if this? It basically blows them out of proportion. And to the untrained eye, it can seem so real and such a, reality. But in truth, I mean, if you look at it, we were talking about with one of the girls in the comments, like, as she was writing out her fears, she's like, they sound ridiculous. And they are ridiculous. And when you can sit back and look at them, you're like, yeah, they are ridiculous. There's no way this should hold me back. The chances of that happening are next to none. And even if I fail, I would have learned something and grown and blah, blah, blah. But in the moment, our ego blows these things up so much that we actually can't see anything but these things, right? Until we rein it back in. Okay, let me look at some of these comments. Sorry, I've missed some. Okay, so got that. Fear of not knowing that I can do it. Worry that that if things go well, I can't keep up with it. Yep, fear of success, right? Can you handle success? Can you handle the things that come up with it? Just the fear of the new. Kate, mine comes up as comparison. Okay, good that you're aware of that and you're noticing that, Kate. And not being good enough and or deserving. Comparisonitis. Often the everyone else is doing it better sort of chatter that talks me out of action. Okay. So Kate, that's a big one as well, because so many people compare. I want to briefly talk about that, because comparison and jealousy are really interesting aspects of our mind, or whatever you want to call it. So here's a different way to look at comparison and jealousy, which I'm putting them in the same category because I do think they're kind of similar. Because we might compare ourselves to someone who's doing better, and think that we're not good enough, and we also at the same time might be jealous that they've done it and we haven't been able to do it, which makes us feel not good enough. Would you agree that they are kind of in similar categories? There's the first perspective on comparison, which I highly recommend that you adopt for yourself, and it's rather than comparing yourself and be inspired, because guaranteed that the people who have done things that you haven't done or that you want to do or that are doing similar things to you, they also went through this whole journey in order to get there. It didn't just magically come to them, right? So they would have had to go through all of these emotional things, comparing themselves to other people and whatever it might be, and overcome these limiting beliefs in order to get to where they are. So rather than always comparing how we're different from people, be inspired by them and look at how you guys are the same. You know, you both obviously might be interested in the same areas. You both are, might have had similar struggles along the journey, and rather get more interested in their journey and how they got there, because that's something that can really help that mindset shift, and then be inspired by that journey. That's actually not what I was going to talk about. That was just an extra side note. As you guys know, I love my side notes. So with this jealousy comparison thing, have a look at it this way. So when we feel jealous or we're comparing ourselves with someone, it is actually a really cool thing that happens when we are actually getting confirmation that the things that we desire are meant for us. Okay? So remember how we spoke about on the first day. You cannot desire something that is not within alignment of what you're capable of in your lifestyle. It's just not possible. You can't desire it if it's not in alignment with what you're capable of achieving in this lifetime. Right? So if you see somebody else doing something and you're jealous, then that is, if you get into that feeling of jealousy and you let yourself sit there, obviously that's a low vibe feeling. However, if you in that moment catch yourself and you think, wow, okay, that is actually just confirmation that what I'm wanting is meant for me. I totally am on the right track of desiring the things that I desire because I felt that desire when I saw somebody else had what I want. Okay? And then at the same time, it also means, you find that sometimes, for example, if you're, single and you're really wanting to call in a partner, suddenly you see all of these other people with these amazing relationships. Or if, let's say, you've been manifesting, a trip overseas or something like that, and then suddenly, your really good friend books a trip overseas, you can have that, oh my God, they're doing it and I'm not doing it. Or you're jealous the fact that they're doing it, and you're like, why is everyone in my life able to do these things and not me? And again, small mindset shift. You feel those feelings first of all because those desires are within your alignment, and then secondly, you're already vibrating at that energy of being able to call those things into your life. So for example, your trip overseas, if ever, all of a sudden all your good friends start booking trips overseas and all you wanted to do was book a trip overseas for ages, it means you're already vibrating at the level of an overseas trip. So you're already creating that energy that's capable of attracting that into your life. It just might not be your turn yet. You know what I mean? And we can sabotage ourselves in that scenario by fully buying into that jealousy and that judgment and that, oh, I'm not good enough, why is everyone else doing it and not me? We can buy into that and we can self-sabotage our way back down, or we can just recognize, celebrate the fact that we're at that alignment, we're aligning ourselves with that energy, celebrate the fact that those desires are meant for us, because otherwise we wouldn't be experiencing this jealous feeling, and then continue doing what you're doing. Take your focus back on yourself. I hope it's important to me. That's why I feel jealous. Makes sense. Yes, otherwise you would not notice. That is totally true. So, I hope that was a good little mindset shift for you. That you guys had. Makes sense. Yes, my life is crazy the last 2 weeks. I'm starting to Marie, I was starting to vibrate so much higher that people quit friendships. All these opportunities were not aligned and just fell away. Business meetings were canceled all the time. The universe was like, Marie, please get it. Isn't it funny? I get scared of the unknown and trying new things career-wise. Okay, that makes sense. So, Rachel, is that because you're afraid that you might fail if you do something new? Is that because what you're doing right now is so within your comfort zone? You wouldn't have a desire to have a new career if what you were doing right now was completely aligned with you. So maybe really think about how shifting your perspective in that area can support you. Let's see. Thanks for the reminders. Cool. Yeah, so let's see. Some of the limiting beliefs that a lot of people put down the other day when I did the poll, the number one was actually, I'm not good enough. And I actually felt so sad about that. I honestly did. Like I said to my husband, I was like, look at how many people do not feel good enough. It makes me so sad. Because, it's funny because sometimes I feel the same way about myself. But when you see it for other people and you know their potential and you know the amazing things they can do, it's just the saddest thing ever because we are so good enough. There's the only reason we don't feel that way is because we've forgotten how powerful we are. Honestly, I was having an existential crisis the other day listening to Conversations with God by, I can't remember who it's by. I was going to say I don't know where my phone is, but I'm live on my phone right now, so there we go, there it is. I'll have a look later, but anyway, so Conversations with God is a really great book, and they were at one point talking about, oh my gosh, I forgot my point. Give me a moment. Not feeling good enough.
Neil Donald Walsh.
Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. And, oh my gosh, I honestly completely forgot the point that I was going to make bringing up that book. Regardless, it had something to do with this topic, so it was really good. Yeah, I can't remember. Thanks, Marie.
About not being good enough.
Yeah, I know it was about not being good enough. Okay, I might just need to move on because it might pop into my head afterwards. But, now I can't remember anything that I was talking about. Does anyone get that when you're just, talking? It's because the thing is, I get, so many different, inspirations of what I can talk about that it's, so much chatter in my head. I just need to, one at a time, please. Come on. So yeah, anyway, the point that I where I can remember that I was talking about is that, it is really sad when now I remember. It was about how we forget how powerful we truly are. And apparently, we are, without going into too much crazy detail of what this book is about, and because I don't even think I could explain it, but basically, we are already, the most powerful, epic, souls ever, right? Our souls, before we've come to this earth, are already, magnificent. They can manifest like that. They can just do anything. They're just, so boss, high vibing, real awesome. And one of the things that our soul really wants to experience, this book talks about, is not only knowing that, etherically, in the spirit realm where our souls come from, it also wants to know it experientially. So it decides to come to Earth to experience life and learn these things or know these things experientially. So sorry if I'm losing anyone because it's kind of woo-woo talk, but I'm doing the best to explain it in the best way without it sounding too crazy. But then and the only way for us to truly know, though, because if we already know everything, right, already etherically or whatever, then how can we experience it if we already know it? And so the only way to know it is to not know it, right? Does that make sense? The only way to know something is to not know it as well. And it's the only way to tell if you're tall is if you know someone's short, or the only way to know if you're, I don't know, smart is to know someone who's not smart, or to know what it's like to be not smart. This makes sense, right? So, yeah, and so we, the only way to know how amazing we truly are is to at one point not to know. So our soul actually makes the decision to forget when we are born, which is why we can't remember any of that stuff, right? So we come to this earth completely blank slate, and our job is not only just to remember these things, but it's not about even figuring out who we are. It's about creating who we are, because we actually have a choice in this life. And I think I spoke about that on one of my last videos. And that is one of the really cool things as well, is when we start to understand that really underneath it all, we know this, we are good enough, we can do anything that we want to do, then it also gets a little bit easier, because then we start to understand that really all of this junk that is telling us these limiting beliefs is not who we truly are, and it is not the truth, and it is not our potential or anything like that. It's actually just all laid upon us through social conditioning, right? So there's all of this media and how we were raised and the things people have said to us in our lifetime that creates the beliefs that we currently have about ourselves, right? That create the thoughts, which create the emotions, which impact the actions we take, which impact the results that we have and the lifestyle that we then end up living. And so I was, one of my mentors, coaches taught him this, and he taught us this at this event we did just a week ago here in Wellington, and I thought it was a really awesome thing to share with you, because within our conscious mind we can only hold so much, which is why also I know a lot of you put down that you didn't know what your limiting beliefs are. And it's because a lot of times, even if we know the surface limiting belief, we don't know what the underlying reason is. And it's not necessarily always our job to know. We don't have to know if we can find a way to release and rewrite new beliefs for ourselves, okay? So don't always get too stuck on the fact that I have to know what all my limiting beliefs are. Everything that you're aware of and that you can pull up, definitely do so, but don't get too wrapped up in this world, because you can just choose to stop believing new beliefs, and then anything you need to let go will make itself apparent to you, okay? So this releasing statement goes something like this. So when you're feeling one of these negative feelings come up, or emotions or thoughts or whatever it might be, or you're feeling super stressed, or you find yourself in a situation where you're doubting yourself, or whatever, anything that we're just talking about, use this statement. So you might want to write this down. The first thing is you become aware of it. So you recognize it. You say, hey, that's not me, that's a program, which we know, right? Those limiting beliefs are not us, they're a program. So, hey, that's not me, that's a program. So you single it out, and you recognize that it's not who you truly are, it's a program. Then you say, I feel it here. So you say where in your body you feel it. So for example, you might feel a tightening in your chest, or you might feel a lightness in your head, or you describe where you feel it, and you describe how it feels. So you feel it in your chest and it feels like tightening, right? So I feel it here and it feels like this. That's the next part of the statement. And then simply just thank you for releasing that. So, hey, that's not me, that's a program. I feel it here and it feels like this. Thank you for releasing that. Now, once we've released something and we've created space, we want to make sure that we're filling it only with love and loving intentions and loving thoughts. So we can follow that statement with, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay, so if you're writing that down, it's, hey, that's not me, that's a program. I feel it here and it feels like this. Thank you for releasing that. I love you, I love you, I love you. And it really works. It's a really great statement. A good way to tell if it's working as well is if you rate yourself from 1 out of 10 on whatever emotion that is prior to doing it, and then rate yourself again after, and you'll see how it's lifted as well. And it's sometimes good to do this, check in almost with yourself every hour and see how you're feeling, or whenever you notice something that isn't serving you coming up, use this statement. Okay? Yeah, it's a really beautiful one. I know, Connie, you've tried it before as well. Thank you to everyone who's still here. So yeah, I think that's the main things that I wanted to cover. Oh, negative self-talk, just really briefly as well. This is one where you literally have to reprogram yourself. So this is one where you have to become aware of all the negative things you're saying and change them. Because unlike feelings like I'm not good enough or a fear of failure, they're not necessarily, they might be, the negative self-talk might be related to those. However, they're not an underlying limiting belief so much as they are literally the words that we choose to label ourselves with and therefore believe is who we are, right? So this is also really important for joking type things, like when you make a mistake and you say, oh, I'm so dumb, or I'm so clumsy, or I'm so this. That is not okay. We need to learn how to stop saying those little things to ourselves, because it's like, I can't think of exactly the way to word it right now, but it's like, if you think it's okay for you to make a little bad statement about yourself, like, oh, I'm so silly, or I'm so dumb for spilling the rice, whatever. I don't know why that popped into my head, but okay, we're going with it. Spilling the rice. Then it's okay for yourself to say really horrible things like, you definitely do not deserve success, you big old dummy. I don't know, whatever else mean we say to ourselves. So that's one where you literally have to start retraining yourself. So what you got to do is when you notice yourself say, I'm so dumb, you immediately retract it. You say, no, I'm amazing, I'm so smart, and you say the opposite, because that is that is the best way to start retraining yourself. And really what's going to happen is you're going to create this awareness about where in your life you do say negative things to yourself. And, even if it's things like you notice these fears coming up, like, oh my gosh, I can't do it, or I'm annoying other people when I do this. That is a negative self-talk in a way, linked to a limiting belief as well. But what we need to do is straight away when we notice it, say no. Like, we can use the releasing statement and we can just reframe it and say a different statement. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. If there's any more questions, obviously pop them into the comments and I'll respond to you guys soon. It's been really great being on here live with you, and we're only on day 3. It feels like we've done so much already, which is awesome. Yes, leave and upload your podcast, Marie. No problem. And I will see you tomorrow for day 4. It's going to be another really great day. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. Mwah.